This is why, as a new shooter and a new concealed carry, I decided to go with the Sig Sauer P365 as my first ever carry gun, despite what happened with the Sig P320. Let's talk about it. So before we get started, I just want to say, number one, thank you for watching my video. This will be the first one I put out on my YouTube channel. I plan to put out a lot more regarding not only just SIGs, but also future guns that I purchase and some other current guns that I have now. Like I said in my intro, I haven't had a concealed carry gun before, so I'm really excited to try this one out and kind of see what it's like. I am not in any way biased towards or against SIG whatsoever. I definitely will buy a couple Glocks in the future and you know, explore many different brands if I can. This is why I decided to go with the SIG, specifically the P365X, as opposed to other options from different brands and other models with SIG themselves, and I'll break down all of that. The first thing I want to touch on is actually the gun itself, and more than that, what comes in the box. I think it's important to know, what you're getting when you're paying, the $600 some odd that this was at the end of the day. So let me go over that with you really quickly. First up, this is what the box looks like. It's like a small suitcase, very similar to what's offered through Glock and I'm sure many other handgun manufacturers. I only know a little bit about Glock because I've had the chance to help a family member buy one and, of course, shoot it. It was the Glock 48, so I know a tiny bit about kind of what they have to offer, what's in their box as well. So it's very similar to that. You have a couple latches here. They say Sig Sauer on them. Couple holes down here by the handle. I suppose these are to mount like some type of lock. I would presume it's for if you want to fly with the gun, you can declare it and check it. And of course, it has to be a hard case with a lock. So I presume that's why they have it packaged this way, but let's open it up and take a look inside. The first thing you're going to find is, of course, your firearm. It has a kind of chamber block like what you see here, nice bright orange. I don't know if every SIG is going to have one of these in it, but the place I bought it from did have this in it. I don't know if that has to do with the company or just the place I bought it from. But essentially, all it does is it just goes into your barrel and lets you know that the gun is in fact clear and safe, as you can see here. Speaking of this, you do get 2 magazines, which I thought was like the bare minimum. I think for a lot of guns, you should probably get more than 2. I think you should probably get like 3, maybe even 4. I know Springfield does a thing where, especially with their Hellcat Pro, they'll do a deal where they give you the gun plus an optic plus like 5 magazines and a carry bag for like $650. That was tempting, specifically because you just get so much for the money. I had a chance to shoot a Springfield Hellcat Pro, and I actually found that I like the SIG a little more. So that's one of the reasons why I went with this, but we'll kind of talk about that later. With the gun itself, you have your slide stop, slide release. You have your takedown lever. Of course, the 365 platform is one of the most modifiable platforms there is because the design is fully modular, and I'll get into more of that later. It is optics ready, so you have a little optics plate there, and you can screw this off and put an optic on it. It's a polymer frame, striker fired gun, very small slide. You do get front and rear sight serrations, which I found to be very, very nice. And you also do get night sights too. So if you look, you have the 2 dots and a 3rd dot here. I prefer this compared to Glock's kind of plastic, dot and U-notch cutout. I just find that this is a little bit better. I do plan on putting an optic on this gun, so iron sights don't matter a ton for me, but just the fact that you do get night sights with this is an extra plus. When we talk about pricing, this was only about $50 or $60 more than the G43X, which was the main Glock I was comparing this gun to specifically. And I can go into some of the reasons why I chose the SIG over the Glock, but for now, let's just talk about what's in the box. So you get the gun. You get 2 magazines. In my state, you're only allowed 10-round magazines. You can get higher capacity magazines for this gun, but this is all that comes with it in my state. The first thing I noticed was this little bag. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's 2 little pins in there. These are called recoil pins. Essentially what these do is they just provide extra resistance with certain optics, which I think is kind of cool. They are included in here rather than having to buy them. I don't think I would have a need for these, but if you do have a specific optic, it looks like SIG says for the compact and pro footprint optics, then it's nice to have these. On top of that, you get a nice Sig Sauer sticker. I don't know if this is a bumper sticker, you're supposed to put it on the case or whatever. It's cool to have, it's actually a cool little sticker, but I don't know if I'll have much use for that. You get some promotional stuff like SIG ammunition, different lubricants for your gun, SIG Training Academy, Second Amendment Foundation, ShootSig.com membership, which I guess is nice, 1 month free of SIG Connect, and then of course the warranty information / instruction manual. And that's all that comes in the box. Let's talk a little bit about why I got this gun itself compared to other models, and then we'll talk more about why I got this gun compared to other options that Sig has, specifically in the 365 platform. I want to talk a little bit about the reason people buy guns in general. And like I said, I'm not very experienced in this, but I think that everybody probably has the same experience when it comes to why you're buying a gun, what you're going to use it for, and then how well do you shoot it. I think those are two of the main things that you need to consider. And I was fortunate enough to have a range near me that has a wide variety of kind of these subcompact, micro-compact pistols to compare. G43X, Springfield Hellcat Pro, 365, 365X, 365XL, and then even some of the larger guns like the Glock 48, Glock 19, full-size guns and all that stuff. So I had the chance to compare a ton of options, which I'm very blessed to do so. Not everybody has that option, so they kind of just have to buy what's available. For me, I was very well informed when I made this purchase. The biggest competitor to the Sig 365X, I would say, is definitely the G43X, the Glock 43X. And I don't think that's a secret to anybody. I found that the ergonomics of the grip of the Sig was just a little more comfortable. You have a little cutout here for your middle finger, which I found to be nice because it prevents the very small gun, which has a ton of recoil, from doing kind of this number here, going up. It's a little cutout, your middle finger is in there. It just makes a lot of sense. For me, the grip size, the grip shape fit my hand a lot better. The flat face trigger was a big selling point for me. That's something that I really loved in shooting the gun. I just found that I just shot this gun better than all the other options that I shot. You may not have the same experience. That's totally fine. That's kind of why I'm making this video. And just so I can put this out there, I'm about 5'6" and 160 pounds. So I'm not a big guy. That was part of the reason that kind of influenced me to get this gun too. It's a little smaller than the G43X. So concealment and all that is, a little bit easier, but back to the trigger. So first of all, gun is clear and safe. It's a nice trigger. You have a little bit of take up and then brakes at 90 degrees, and the reset, pretty straightforward. So reset, brake. It's a nice trigger to pull, and I'll show you really quick. Reset, brake. It's a good trigger pull. It allows me to keep a good grip on the gun in, when I'm double or kind of like triple tapping, if that makes sense, when I'm doing 1-2 or 1-2-3s with the gun. I quite enjoyed that a lot. The last thing I kind of want to touch on is modularity. If you don't know, if you're not already familiar, the 365 and the 320 platform from Sig Sauer work on what's called a firing control module. Inside of here is what I want to talk about. This portion of the gun, and it's held in by this pin, is the actual serialized part of the gun. So if you look, there's a cutout in the polymer, and behind that cutout is the serial number that sits on the metal portion, what's called the firing control module. This is what you need a background check to purchase, not the handle, not the slide, the actual FCM. And what I love about Sig is you can take this FCM and you can put it in many different grips, slides, and any combination of the two to kind of make your own Sig, if that makes sense. So if I wanted to take the 365X and make it an XL, all I would have to do is purchase the longer XL slide. This is the X slide, I would have to purchase the XL slide. And that slides right on top, and you're good to go. If I wanted to turn this 365X into a 365 with a shorter grip with only 2 fingers on it, all you have to do is purchase a different grip. You keep the firing control module. All you have to do is pop that pin out, and then you put the regular grip and the firing control module together and the slide. The modularity is something that I found a lot of value in because, it's warm right now. The small signature of the 365X is great for concealment when you're not wearing very heavy clothing. But as it starts to come into, now October, then November, December, where it gets really cold, you can conceal a little bit bigger of a gun. And I have intentions of turning this into an X Macro, which is the bigger grip plus the bigger slide. Same firing control module. So I can get these parts sent to my house, even in a very liberal state, no background check necessary, and I can turn this smaller gun into a little bit larger, of more of a compact, instead of a subcompact gun. And I think that there's a lot of value in that because you don't have to go through tons of background checks and fill out a ton of forms. And then for me, in my state, you can only buy a handgun every 30 days. So you can kind of mitigate a lot of that by having one firing control module, but multiple different platforms to put it in. So that was one of the key selling points for me. So it beat out Glock in ergonomics. For me, it beat out Glock in performance. I could shoot it better. It's a little bit more expensive than a Glock, which I was fine with. The cost difference for me ended up being like about $50 between a 43X MOS, so optics ready, versus the 365X. And for me, the 365X was a good purchase because I could turn it into an X macro whenever I pleased, and I didn't have to go through an extra process of filling out a background check like I spoke to you about before. Other competitors like the Hellcat Pro, I didn't shoot the Hellcat Pro very well at all, personally. I found that the grip of the gun was a little weird for me. The taper, it got a little thinner as it went down rather than flaring out. It was kind of straight and it just got thinner and thinner and thinner. For me, that caused some issues with holding onto the gun as it recoiled. There was a lot of recoil with it, personally, for me. And I found that the benefits that you got, a lot of the features, you get an optic, you get a bunch of magazines and a carry case, they just didn't really matter to me to justify going with a gun that I was less comfortable with. One thing I want to touch on really quickly is just the grip. The Glock grip is nothing to call home about. It's plastic with some dots on it. For me, the Sig grip is much better. There's real texture in here. I can hold on to this a lot more. If my hands are wet, sweaty, if I'm carrying this gun while I go on a jog or I'm at the gym and my hands are sweaty, I can still grip the gun in a way that is going to produce results. I'm not going to have a bad grip when I go to present it if I need to defend myself at any time, and that's very, very important. Now, why did I go with the 365X as opposed to just buying the X Macro or the XL or just the regular 365? A couple of things. I wanted to get it over the 365 simply because the longer grip. I found that the shorter grip was pointless for me because you can still conceal this really well. It's not a big grip by any means. I can get all three of my fingers on it. As you can see, like I said, I don't have very big hands. Flush fit magazine there. It fits my hands well. It's small, but it fits my hands fine. And I don't really like pinky extensions on the magazines. I think those are kind of stupid. I think they look stupid. I think that the function of it is pretty stupid because if you're gonna do a pinky extension, you might as well just get a bigger grip. That's my thoughts on it. So that's why I didn't go with the regular 365. Why did I go for the X rather than the XL? A couple things. One is kind of a novelty thing, but you can actually take the 365X slide, which is shorter than the XL slide, and you can put it on a X Macro grip, and you can have the Radian Ramjet Afterburner combo, which is their barrel and compensator setup, and you have what's called a flush comp, which is essentially where your grip, your kind of the frame of the gun sits out a little further. The barrel sits a little shorter, but that compensator comes to an end and it's flush at the end. I'll put up a picture of that so you can see what I'm talking about. So for modularity potential in the future, again, touching on that modularity of the Sig, I think it's awesome. So that's why I didn't go with the XL. Why not the X Macro? Because I wanted something that was a little bit easier to conceal, even when I'm not wearing heavy clothing. Very rarely do you find me in heavy clothing because when I'm at work, I don't wear very heavy clothing. I'm usually inside. When I'm at home, of course, when I'm out and about, I usually just wear a jacket or a hoodie. I tend to not be bundled up even when it gets very cold, just because I don't spend a lot of time outside, really. So that's why I wanted to go something a little more concealable than the X Macro, but of course with the grip a little bit longer than just the regular 365. And I think a lot of people feel the same way, if I had to guess. Why not the 320 as compared to 365? This is where we touch on the elephant in the room, I guess, would be the 320 has had reliability issues, we'll say. There's been some uncommanded discharges that are on video, and it's scary, especially as a new shooter, as a new concealed carry, as somebody who's kind of getting into this for the first time. First of all, when you first get into firearms, and I've not kicked this, by the way, having a gun pointed at your junk for an extended period of time while loaded with one in the chamber is not fun to think about. You get used to it over time, but if you have something in the back of your mind that says this gun could go off uncommanded at any time, not something I super agree with. So do I love the 320? Absolutely not. I would never use one, I would never buy one, and I sure as hell would never appendix carry one. I don't love how Sig even handled the 320 situation. I think that a lot more needs to be done to remedy that issue for people who've spent a lot of money on those guns and now don't feel safe using them, and lives have been cost in this scenario. So I think that Sig needs to kind of up their game when it comes to that because they've dropped the ball quite a bit. That being said, the 365 platform has not had those same reliability or drop safe issues. So I feel fine purchasing one of these. Even if Sig as a brand is not something that I would super, support, I would never really endorse, if that makes sense, because of how they handled it. For me, owning one of these guns is fine. The last thing I want to touch on are some complaints. And I really only have one major complaint with the gun. And I want to touch on this really quick. It's the magazine release. So if you look from the side, the magazine release is slanted. It's not flat or parallel with the side of the grip here. So when my finger, and I'll show you really quick, when my finger reaches around to push this, I have kind of small thumbs. I'm touching the edge of the magazine release here, right on that edge with my finger. So I'm not catching the middle where you push it straight down, I'm catching the edge. And so there's a lot more resistance. It's harder to get a full, like I'm pushing very hard to get that magazine to come out. I'll show you. It's not easy because I don't have the right leverage, which means I have to break my grip just slightly to rotate my thumb around and hit it. So it's a little easier to release that magazine. Compare that to some other guns that I felt specifically with Glock. Glock is actually the other way. So if you look, the magazine release is slanted kind of this way, so you have to reach your finger around to push the button. Glock is kind of slanted the other way. So if you have your, you know, the side of your grip here, the Glock magazine release is kind of slanted this way, so you can easily reach over and kind of, you know, index it with your thumb there. It kind of, there's a little bit of a gap. It closes that gap, so to speak. That's the only complaint I have so far. Just in practicing some reloading drills, I noticed that I do have to sort of, not break my grip, but I go from a tight grip here, and I have to just slightly loosen it to reach around and comfortably push that button. Something I have to get used to for sure. Do they make some aftermarket magazine releases? I'm sure they do. But for me, it just seems kind of pointless. Why wouldn't you just angle it the other way? The world may never know. The gun itself has been super reliable, zero malfunctions. I've only put range ammo through it so far, never any self-defense ammo yet, so we'll have to see how that goes. But so far so good. No complaints for me. I think that it's been reliable. It's a good choice. I don't have any buyer's remorse whatsoever. If I had to go over and do it all again, I would buy the Sig 365X all over again. If you have any questions about the gun, maybe I can help you make an educated decision on your first concealed carry gun purchase. Feel free to put them in the comments down below. If you have any questions for me about my thought process, something maybe I didn't explain very well in the video, or just questions about the 365X in general, feel free to let me know. If you have any recommendations on what gun I should buy next, or the type of content you'd like to see next, feel free to let me know. Other than that, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.